This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Oh, holy cow. Wow.
I was waiting. Garrett said like 45 seconds. And you know how like in your mind time is like kind of relative. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, oh, has it been a certain amount of time?
So yeah, Garrett, you have the dog video, right?
Yes, I have the dog video.
We're going to play that. Like usually we save it for social media. We're going to play that on the show today.
All right.
We have had Humane Society dogs come in here. And we may only play like part of it so people can see because it's not a finished product yet. We have to do some things to it. But we have a sponsor named Pimpaws who does pet insurance. And so I thought a good thing for them to help promote what they do would be to talk about shelter dogs because I had a friend, John, who reached out to me about me helping out with some of the things they do. And then his original idea kind of got caught up in the bureaucratic works. And by the way, this is the Triple Option, Paul Catalina, Steven Simcox. Thank you for coming. I'm explaining why I was late to this. And you can see, like, I haven't even turned the volume off on my computer yet.
We're on the air.
Yeah, we're on the air. So anyway, what happens is we bring these dogs in, and, you know, I just do a little segment, and I tell people to adopt them. And I've loved unconditionally all but one of them. One of them I just kind of liked. It wasn't my vibe.
Didn't click.
The dog that they brought in today, Garrett, you can testify to this. Steven, you were here.
Man.
That dog and me are, I mean, we should be together. Like,
yeah,
we should be a family. He was perfect. His name is Tigger. I immediately loved him. And so he's very chill, 5 months old. And so because of that, and my dog died just over a year ago, on Labor Day last year. And so I've missed having a dog. My wife is also a dog person, but she also has liked,
not having to take care of one?
Not having to take care of a dog. It's a lot, you know, it's a lot, you know, there's a lot to it, but I'm missing it a lot. And I really do. Steven, you know, I'm a dog person. Anytime somebody brought a dog into the studio when we were working together, I was the first person to be like, oh, let me play with this dog. So that's why I was distracted, because I'm in negotiations right now with the CEO of Catalina Industries, which is Amanda. And I don't think it's going to go well for me, but maybe if I can get her to.
I mean, if she sees this video, Tigger's a great dog.
Yeah.
And you guys immediately hit it off. And you turned in, I mean, you have a lot of charisma. You have great personality. You're also kind of reserved emotionally. You immediately turned into kind of a different person.
Yes.
When the dog was around.
Yes.
You're just like talking so sweet to that dog. Y'all were snuggling up together on that chair.
Yeah.
It made a lot of sense.
It's like sometimes there are things that happen that are too big to ignore. And that's where I am. So we will see it. Kyle Visser, by the way, says, surprised us a show today with Paul's solo duties for the rest of the week. Well, here's the thing. If Steven Simcox couldn't come in today, we would not have done a show. I can tell you that right now. We would have just Smokey and Craig have Mansfield Midway tonight, and then tomorrow, our initial plan was on the Thursday games we'll just flip the schedule, and I'll have my Friday guests on Thursday, and then we'll do a normal do a Thursday show on Friday. But Smokey and Craig are also on their way to Nebraska tomorrow morning for Nebraska and Illinois. So it's very exciting times, and at least 50% of the Smoke family. I think Craig's excited. I think. He seems excited.
He seems like, well, I heard.
I mean, it's hard to tell with Craig.
Smokey told him he was going to get they were going to get field passes, and it perked him up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like Craig's kind of like me in that once he gets there, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun, but the idea of leaving the house, traveling, is kind of like, oh man, I got to do that. Yeah. So that's the part that's like, yeah, we got to do this. But once you get there, it's all good.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like that's That's wonderful. But I think a lot of us are like that. Like I these even stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
Where I'm like going to going to cover Cowboys games. I always wanted to do that. Right. But I remember like getting up in the morning being like, oh man, I have to get in the car. I've got to go all the way here. I have to do this. Like I have to do all these things I don't like to do the thing that I like. Yeah. And then like once you get to the thing you're like, oh, none of that bothers me. You know, I never like outside of getting caught in traffic or like there was an accident or something, you know, on 30 after a Cowboys game. I never like going there. It was always like, oh God. Occasionally Chad Conine would come up with me. And so I'd have a partner,
friend,
like a friend, somebody come to and, you know, like all come with me. So it was better. But at the end of the day, like, you know, when those times weren't, it was just me by myself. The morning going up there was always like, why?
John Mulaney has a bit at the beginning of one of his specials where he talks about how canceling plans is like heroin when it comes to instant relief.
Yeah.
And I mean, he might know because he likes to dabble in things or used to. But yeah, it's always, and even better is even if you want to go to something, if the other person cancels the plans last minute and then suddenly you don't have to do it and you're not responsible for it, oh man.
Yeah.
There's nothing better.
Yeah. Occasionally I'm like, very rarely I'm disappointed because it's something I wanted to do. Somebody had to cancel plans on me last week and it wasn't even like big plans. It was just they were going to come over and watch games with me since Amanda's been on this cruise.
Right.
They left on the cruise and then they couldn't at a family situation. And I was just like, oh, does this mean I can like
be by myself
and, you know,
do what I want?
Yeah. I don't have to like worry about cleaning up after a second person and all that. No, it was a relief. I was like texting with Amanda. She's like, oh, are you sad? I'm like, yeah.
A little bit.
I mean, like, you know, I was kind of looking forward to it. I ordered 2 pizzas and now I don't need 2 pizzas, but you know.
We're going to fight through. We're going to soldier on.
We'll figure, like, I work at a place where, like, if I bring it, people will eat it. So
that's true.
It's not going to go to waste. As a matter of fact, Jack and I were here, this new look studio. Jack and I started working on it on Sunday, and I just gave it to Jack and said, here, take it to your friends in your 20s. He's like, no problem. Both pizzas just gone. So, you know, I had my share and moved on with my life. So
yeah, studio looks good, Paul. Y'all are rearranging in here.
Yeah. It's time for a new look. It's time for a refresh. It's been 4 years, you know. We are right now at the function over fashion stage of it, though. So other things are going to change and move around. But for now, this is where we are. It's very comfortable. It's very spread out. So it's feng shui in here.
Function over fashion is how I would describe how I dress. But I think my wife would disagree.
Okay, here's the thing. As you get older, function over fashion becomes the thing. Mm-hmm. And it's why you have a wife, so that you don't look absolutely ridiculous
all the time
when you walk out the door. Because, and I know this from my dad, and I also know this from growing up in South Florida. The older you get as a man, here's what you think. I like this hat. I like this shirt. I like these pants. Mm-hmm. I like these shoes. That is all the matching I need to do.
Right.
I like this is all it has to be.
Let's just cut the decisions
out. I like, why are you wearing that combo? And you're like, well, I like all these things. It's like, well, yeah, but you're not at Golden Corral. Like you can't just go out.
You're not getting hot and ready from Little Caesars.
No, you're just like, you're going out to a thing, like a function. But I remember like being an altar boy in church, and it was constant comedy for me. Because neither of these, you are Catholic, so you probably haven't witnessed this, but it used to be when you were an altar boy, one of the things you had to do was they had like a little plate that you would put, especially, and they kept it going in South Florida because there were so many old people, like, you know, that kind of like trembly. So when you give out the Eucharist, they don't drop it. So you have like a little thing. I'll tell you, only once did that plate ever come into like, oh, I gotcha. Here, can you catch it? Catch it on the flip. There we go.
You're like a bocce chef.
Yeah. Whoa, hey, all right. There you go. Here's your Lord and Savior. Right, but they would walk up during communion, and you would just see these old men in like Bermuda shorts with a shirt that didn't match it, and like socks and sandals pulled up because they decided like, we'll go to mass at 5:30. Why not? Come on. And we famously in South Florida, you're not supposed to have Catholic mass on Saturday before sunset, but they got a dispensation from the Pope. The Pope.
They wrote him?
They wrote to the Pope, the bishops of Florida, and said, hey, we have a lot of older citizens here who, it's just easier for them to, the con and the lie that was foisted onto Pope John Paul II was that it's easier for people to drive in the daytime when they're older. So if you have it at 3:30 p.m. as opposed to 6 p.m., it's easier for people to get there. But that's not why they did it. They did it because enough of the church populace was like, well, I'd like to just get mass out of the way and then still make it at 4:30 for the early bird.
That's right.
Yeah.
Get that dinner deal.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen the Seinfeld. Like, look who's eating at 6 o'clock. That's real. That is all too real. As a matter of fact, 6:30 p.m. in Fort Myers, Florida in the 90s was a really easy time to get a table at a nice place. Like if you called up and said like if my dad had a client meeting and was like, hey, this guy's got to be out by 7:30, we got to go at 5. And like, what, are you kidding me? You can't get in here at 5 o'clock.
That's prime time.
You nuts? That's where you have to know the manager. Like, no. Tell Gary it's Pete. He'll do it for me.
I know it's a big ask, but
I know that like Saturday is half price lobster night. So
I just want to get dinner done before the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah. So anyway, Steven, let's talk through your pain here.
Okay, let's do it.
TCU played a nearly immaculate first half last week. I mean, they were really kind of taking it to UCF. I remember turning off that game at halftime and going, yeah, it's a bummer. I was really hoping it would be better. You know, I don't have a dog in the hunt.
Right. You just wanted a good football game.
I just wanted a good football game. I was excited. I thought the teams were evenly matched. It turns out I was right. It's both teams had one excellent half in them.
Yeah.
And TCU would have rather it been flipped. You know, UCF had the great second half. They came back and won. And what do you think happened outside of the defensive struggles that they had? What happened on offense, and what did UCF do better that got taken away? Because in the first half, Josh Hoover was absolutely dealing.
He was. And, I mean, even in the first half, they were in 3rd and long a lot, and they were just converting it in the passing game, and they kind of did whatever they wanted in the passing game. But when they went up 28-7, Hoover hit Jack Besh in a long touchdown pass. I remember, because, you know, I do a post-game show after, so I'm kind of always watching the game and thinking, like, all right, what's the story? Like, what's the big picture takeaway? And my thought was, I thought they're going to win, and my thought was, all right, I'm going to talk about how they won, but this is still a pretty flawed team because they can't run the ball, and so that's going to show up at some point. Well, it showed up over the next 28 minutes as they couldn't shorten the clock and, you know, ice away that game because they weren't running the ball. And, I mean, you know this, Paul, like, there's just, when you're throwing that much, there's just not much room for error. Like, if you get, they had a 2nd and 5 where they had a nice little screen pass set up and the receiver, JoJo Earl, just fell. I mean, he just fell on the turf. And then they couldn't convert on a 3rd and 5. They had a couple drives stall in the red zone. They had a false start on 3rd and goal from the 1. So that took 4 points off the board potentially if they could have punched it in there. And then UCF, I think UCF's good. They're big up front. They run the ball really well. KJ Jefferson, when he was asked to throw the ball, did a nice job. But, yeah, it was a tough one. I feel like if that would have just been a tightly contested game all the way through and they lost by a point and it was back and forth, I would have come away saying, all right, well, you know, both teams look like they're decent and TCU can bounce back. But blowing a 21-point lead at home, that's tough. I mean, it's just a bad look. And we'll see what happens against SMU this week. But I think it's a huge game for them just psychologically kind of getting up off the mat. But yeah, that was one where they let it slip through their fingers, and they're not a super well-balanced team. So it really does feel like most weeks it's going to come down to Josh Hoover's arm and can they get enough stops to win the ball game, which is not a recipe for winning consistently, I don't think.
No, absolutely not. So they look, but my opinion of them actually raised in that game a little bit more. I like it was a test. They lost by a point. It's not like it's not the end of the world. I do think that both teams are going to have to be reckoned with down the line, especially if Josh Hoover keeps playing like he is. Sonny Dykes was bullish on him, and I remember thinking like, well, he looked okay to me at times, but he was also kind of thrust into action. They had a situation with Chandler Morris last year where Chandler Morris came in under the previous staff.
Yeah.
And I think he was maybe more of a Patterson guy than a Dykes guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not indicting Chandler Morris on that, but like clearly he didn't fit with them the way. Right. And look, he was supposed to be the starter initially, and then Max Duggan just had his year. Mm-hmm. Finally came into his own. It's where Max Duggan was, obviously recruited by the Patterson regime, but what ultimately led him to finding his game was Sonny Dykes.
I mean, they took a gamble this offseason by not going to get a QB. The guy that won on Saturday, KJ Jefferson, there was sort of there wasn't really smoke there, but when he hit the portal, there were a lot of people that were understandably like, well, he played with Kendall Briles at Arkansas. That would make sense. But they stuck with Hoover, and I think that's worked out. I feel like the mistake they made, and Sonny actually talked about this on your show, Paul, but you guys asked him about the running backs, and he was like, well, I think Cam Cook's really good. We like what we have with Trey Sanders, and they didn't make a move there. And I think they also have offensive line issues, but I think Cam Cook's going to be good eventually. Right now, he's struggling, and I feel like part of it's play calling. Also, Sonny said this week, he was like, look, they're running a lot of RPO stuff, and there's times where Josh is just, as good as he's been, like he's just not seen. There's times where he should hand the ball off, and he's just not doing it.
Yeah.
Like he just needs to take the 6 or 7 yards that they can get on the ground and stop pulling it out of the running back's chest and throwing it around. But they're going to have to find some balance on offense somehow. I think defensively, they looked like a team that was in year one of a scheme against a good offensive coach. And even like in the first half, UCF moved the ball. TCU blocked 2 field goals, and they were able to get those drives stalled out in the red zone, which was helpful. But in the second half, they started running downhill, and they just had no answer for it.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple other rapid-fire things before we get, in the next segment, we'll go through some of the games. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, FSU plays Cal this week. They're obviously 0-3 versus 3-0.
Yep.
The Calgorithm is a thing I didn't know anything about.
I didn't either.
I didn't know anything about it, but I'm impressed.
They're funny.
They're funny. They're really good. They're in it. They've got zings. FSU has not been as good. FSU Twitter is very angry.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's very angry. FSU Twitter is famous for being so angry, which is why it's a total buzzkill. But the Calgorithm, Gary, you've seen some of this stuff.
I have. Very entertaining.
It is entertaining.
They've really leaned into the idea of being like the
hippies,
the hippie liberal school.
Yeah.
So they've done some photoshops,
like Woke Campbell Stadium.
Yes, Woke Campbell Stadium.
Yeah.
They've done some photoshops for the Cal Bears, bringing in briefcases with CRT labels on them. So it's really funny. And I mean, Cal's one of those schools that good for them. I didn't have a lot of expectation or thought about them when they moved to the ACC, but they're playing well. And even though FSU's struggling, this would still be a big statement for them to go in there and get a victory if they can. But yeah, it's fun to see that they have a fan base that is just kind of leaning into the joke. I always like it when people are that self-aware. So it's been funny to watch them go back and forth with FSU fans this week.
Oh yeah, it's been good. And again, we're in an angry phase of our relationship with planet Earth right now.
General existence.
Just general existence. Everything is bad. Everything's bad. Well, nobody appreciates us. We suck at football all of a sudden again. And we think we deserve more than we're getting. And we think the ACC is taking advantage of us. That's the narrative at Florida State. I don't agree with most of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very good. And like, I'll tell you, covering the Cowboys as a fan made me able to apply this logic to all the rest of my teams. Is now that I know how the sausage is made, it allows me to separate my emotions from my opinion.
Okay.
On a great many things. And I don't bat 1,000, but I get pretty close. Like, I'd win the title.
I do good on most things now. TCU, I can still get a little cloudy, but for the most part,
FSU is the one where I get cloudy.
I'm able to take a step back and say, okay, this is what's happening.
Yeah, because I look at like a lot of things Florida State's doing, and I agree that Florida State and Clemson need to find a way to make more money to stay competitive and be what they want to do.
Right.
I don't know if this is a fully fleshed out plan, or if it's let's see what happens, and then we'll go to the next step, and we'll do, what do we do now? Because I do think, Steve, I used this analogy yesterday. Have you ever seen the movie The Graduate? Mm-hmm. It's a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorites. The other movie, The Graduate, Dustin Hoffman busts in, and it's like, and then breaks up the wedding, and they run off, and everybody's going, like that, and they're playing Mrs. Robinson, and then they get into hello darkness, my old friend, as they're sitting on the bus, and they're like, okay, we're together, great. Now what do we do? Like, what's the plan?
What's the next step?
Yeah, so that's the whole thing. So that feels to me like what they're doing right now is FSU and Clemson are, running to the church and banging on the walls, and then they get on the bus and they're like, all right,
what do we do now? Yeah.
Like, unless the phone ring, like as soon as they get out of the conference, what if the phone doesn't ring? Or what if the call comes from somewhere where you didn't want it to come from?
That's true. Grass is not always greener. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always thought that, while I would like better scheduling matchups, certainly I would love. Hob Hal just texted me. Money isn't fixing FSU's problems, Paul. Not right now.
No, not right now.
Not right now.
But we're talking long term.
We're talking long term, and it probably But also, money may not fix that either.
Sure.
If you
still got to play.
If you have poor leadership, it's not. I'm not talking about on the field. I think coaching's fine. I think that'll get worked out. But as far as the decision makers, that's where I'm worried about. That's the people who make these decisions, and the coaches just have to go, well, all right,
yeah, I
guess we're in this conference now. I guess we're doing this now. That's what I'm talking about. There is so much of that. I just think that working something out with the ACC is going to be better. It's going to be better. Go get your private equity. It's coming everywhere. It's coming everywhere.
Yeah. It's going to be part of our world.
Everywhere that's not and even Ohio State might even get into it, but everywhere that's not an Ohio State or a Georgia, a Bama, they're
going to need some subsidy.
I'm all verklempt. I'm totally verklempt about this. When we come back, let's go through the games of the week in the Big 12 and some of the other national games. I want to get your thoughts. Tennessee and Oklahoma, we'll talk about that one too. We'll go through that, and then what's our wheel topic today?
I'm going to have Paul rank villains in college football.
Okay. I'm going to give them a comic book or movie villain.
Okay.
Equal as well.
Contemporary? Nice.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll rank them, and I'll say, obviously whoever the number one is, the best villain is the Joker. And I think the reason the best villain is the Joker and not maybe Darth Vader is, only one actor has really played Darth Vader. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. I mean, I know that there's different people in the suit, but you know what I'm saying? Well, I guess two, Hayden Christensen, but James Earl Jones. But the Joker is now it's our era's Hamlet. If you were a British actor in the 50s, playing Hamlet,
that was the thing. Yeah,
at the Globe Theater was that was the pinnacle of achievement. Now, if you're a really, really good actor, they want you to play the Joker.
That's true.
I mean, I understand that it's maybe a step down from to be or not to be compared to want to see a magic trick? I get it. But, Jared Leto, he played, he was in Dallas Buyers Club, and they're like, you know what? Joker. Joker material. You know who's weird? Joaquin Phoenix. Joker.
Just let him live in that world for a couple months.
Yeah. And then every time, Willem Dafoe, super weird. He should play the Joker. Everybody wants Willem Dafoe to play the Joker. Probably never going to happen. Mm-hmm. But, that's what they do. So that'll be the number one, and then I'll pick some other villains that people may not know from other things.
I like it.
Yeah. So we'll do that. That's coming up in the last segment. But first, we're going to do some picks. Garrett, roll those commercials.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back. The Triple Option. That was, I don't know if people heard that.
There was a honk there.
There was a honk, right as we came back on.
They must love the show.
So here's the thing. Garrett had to tell me to start before because I'm in deep dog negotiations right now.
Oh, you're doing that live right now?
I was doing that live. I was telling.
Okay.
So then, I sent the raw video to my wife, and she's like, "Oh, he loves you." I'm like, "Yes, yeah. He does. We had an instant connection. Don't let this dog go to another family. He belongs with us."
Don't deny me this. This relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyway, I mean, there's many steps I'd have to go through. Mostly, I'm gonna have to get her a really expensive vacation.
There's a price for everything, man.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to Gatlinburg with your friends in May. No.
Doesn't count.
There needs to be a stamp on the passport to a place I've never been. Have you ever been to Greece? I guess, not that I had a be against Greece, but yeah, I mean, that's expensive.
That is.
So, but
the big fat Greek wedding DVD?
I'm going to do a GoFundMe for help Paul adopt a dog. It's why does it cost $17,000? Oh, that's not for the dog.
Yeah. You're like
that's just to bribe my wife.
Televangelist Paul suddenly he's going on vacation with the tides.
Yeah. Hey, listen, God said I need to save this.
I'm going to help you guys get financial freedom by buying me a jet.
Because you too can learn how to convince other people to buy you a jet. Yeah. So, Stephen, this week in the Big 12, we're starting to get into we had the first legit Big 12 on Big 12 action. Mm-hmm. We've had two others that were meh games. Yeah. Arizona and Kansas State last week was disappointing in that Arizona just and here's the thing. I do think for Arizona State in particular, I don't think this is going to affect Utah because Utah plays in Raucous Stadium all the time. But for Arizona and Arizona State in particular, now that they're not going to the Pac-12 and playing in places that are less than enthusiastic about their team compared to in Big 12 SEC country where it's all that defines us. It is our whole personality. That's tough. On a Friday night, Manhattan, Kansas for the first time. I didn't expect Arizona to win that game. I just thought they'd play a little bit better. But sure. Kansas State really kind of I think the way that they're going to be at the end of the year is going to really – you're going to see I wouldn't have pegged that after watching that Tulane game. Mm-hmm. But I think they'll be very, very good. Yeah,
they dominated that from start to finish. And I can't really make sense of Arizona yet, but that was a disappointing performance for them to just not be competitive at all. Yeah. I mean, you really can't excuse you can't just get past that and say, oh, well, they'll just bounce back. I mean, maybe they can, but that was a butt whooping.
Yeah, it was. It was an absolute butt whooping from it. The most interesting game to me this week is Kansas and West Virginia. The who are you game.
Yeah.
Both these teams are going to find out a lot about who they are. I'm going to pick Kansas because I think they're a little bit better. I think Smokey and Craig both picked West Virginia. Where do you land on this game?
I'll take Kansas as well. I just feel like there's more talent there, but they're struggling. What do you think of the Jeff Grimes situation right now, Paul? Like, is this just not working? It's early.
I think that was and I like Jeff Grimes a lot personally, but I think that was maybe not the best hire they could have made.
Right.
It's a step down. Andy Koldenicki is a guy whose arrows pointed up. Jeff Grimes, he wasn't. Here's the thing. That's why I was surprised. He wasn't coming back to Baylor. Like, they didn't poach him from Baylor.
Yeah.
He wasn't coming back. Andy Koldenicki got poached. Jeff Grimes didn't. I think that's where, maybe I would have made him an offensive line coach again in a heartbeat because he's really good at that. And then let him find find the new Jeff Grimes coordinator, not the old Jeff Grimes coordinator, because he's not – that offense and the personnel aren't meshing right now. Like, he's not doing the same thing.
Well, it's just not innovative. I mean, he's not a bad play caller. I think he wants to do a lot of fundamental principles, but what Kansas thrived on the last few years was a lot of misdirection and option principles, and they schemed guys open a lot. And I also think I feel like it's going to get better. Jalen Daniels hasn't played in a long time. He's playing this year, but I feel like we all sort of think, oh yeah, that's the guy that was just killing Illinois a year ago and looks like maybe a Heisman candidate, and he went down with that back injury. It does take time to get back into rhythm, and you're also talking about factoring in new offense. I like Kansas, though. I just think they're slightly better. I haven't been super impressed with West Virginia, even though I feel like the schedule's been tough. And I didn't have a lot of belief in them before the season anyway, so I'll take the Jayhawks.
Yeah, I'll take like I said, I like the Jayhawks in that one. West Virginia just not Arizona State and Tech. Tech showed out on offense against North Texas.
Yeah, they look good.
And they look good. It's the first time they've looked good all year, though, because I wouldn't even call them looking good against Abilene Christian. I would just say that they
survived.
They survived in that game. Arizona State is scrappy, and Kenny Dillingham has built some character into that team. I don't know if they're diverse offensively enough to beat Tech, but I think it will be interesting because I think that they're there to scrap, and we'll see if Texas Tech has got a little bit of their swagger back.
Is this game in Lubbock?
Yeah, it is in Lubbock.
Yeah, I'll take Tech. I mean, I think Arizona State is pointing in the right direction, and they're better than we thought. Mississippi State is obviously bad. I think we saw that last week with what they're going through in a rebuild. The Texas State win was impressive to me, but I still think it was an Arizona State team that's improved a little bit. And I feel like this is sort of a last stand for Tech in some ways. I think that offense gets going and they get the victory.
What I will say, I'll say this about their schedule. So they're at Tech, then they have Kansas after a bye, then Utah, Cincinnati, BYU, and Arizona. They have, if they can find a fourth one before the end run, if this could be their fourth one, I think there's a really good chance they can get to 6.
Yeah, I'd see that.
But their schedule is one of the tougher ones, especially when it comes to stopping offenses. Like Tech, offense is not, outside of whatever happened at Wazoo, offense is probably not going to be the problem most of the time, especially on an average day for them. They're going to
score points.
They're going to score points. Kansas, I don't think they can really hang with them, especially if they get their offense right, which I do think that Jeff Grimes is in danger of not being the play caller before. If they go 1-3, Jeff Grimes is not going to be calling plays in that 5th game.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's making the move
upstairs.
Upstairs.
Yeah,
okay.
He's making the move upstairs.
Which is always a last. I mean, that's totally a preference thing.
Yeah.
And that's definitely hey, let's say we're making a change so that the fans will be like, oh, they're doing something.
Yeah. But now he's just going to be up here.
Right.
He's still going to be saying the same things.
Yeah.
Just further away from the head coach.
He's got a little better view, I guess.
There'll be a buffer zone between him and Lance Leipold. That's not just human shields. He can go. But Utah, not a game I think they're going to win. No. Cincinnati, winnable game. Oklahoma State, probably not a winnable game. UCF right now, and that game's on the road. Or no, that's at home. I'm sorry. That's at home. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they can hang. But again, they're scrapping BYU and then Arizona's rivalry game. So, they've got potential to get to 6. I'd like to see them get to 6. I think that'd be
a huge step forward for them.
Phil Snow was with us for an hour yesterday, and if you've not seen it, take an hour, it was awesome. It was great. It was just so much football knowledge. I asked him, I said, is that place the Sleeping Giant it looks like? And he said, maybe. Maybe it is. And he was there when Jake Plummer, he coached Pat Tillman, so he was there in the last, what I would say, glory days of the Sun Devils. Since then, it's been very spotty. But he was there, and he mentioned, they need leadership that really loves sports, which they've not really had. So we'll see. Okay, the last game we're going to talk about is Utah and Oklahoma State because that's the best game of the week. But Baylor and Colorado.
Man, what an interesting situation. I'm shocked by the amount of Baylor people that are already jumping off the DeQuan Finn bandwagon. I know it was a rough go there and at Utah, Paul, and I know Sawyer Robertson looked good last week against Air Force, but it was Air Force. I'm really surprised at how quickly they're bailing. This is a good matchup. I don't think they're these two great teams, but it's just a very evenly matched group. I think Baylor has enough trench play to get this victory, even with the great skill players that Colorado has. And I don't feel like Baylor's great in the trenches, but I think they're just better than Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I picked Baylor to win. Gary, did you pick Baylor to win?
Yeah, I picked Baylor 35-34.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I think that what Colorado has that Baylor doesn't have is superstar skill players. Mm-hmm. They have that. What Baylor might have is Army ants. Colorado doesn't have a lot of Army ants. That's what they need. And I don't think they can run the ball. And like Phil said, just make them one-dimensional. Just make them one-dimensional. Make Shadur have to beat you. And because they're not going to run the ball. They're just not. It's not something's going to happen with them. All right, moving on. A non-conference game, TCU at SMU, Stephen. We're gonna sneak this in the middle here.
Okay, so SMU had a bye week. Mm-hmm. They also have a quarterback now. They named Kevin Jennings the starter. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to help them. Sonny has had some bad moments as TCU's coach. He has had his guys ready for this game the last 2 years. And so I think that continues. I feel like the offense has another good day. The defense does enough. I feel like TCU wins and moves to 2-0 against the ACC with those wins against famous ACC members, Stanford and SMU.
Yep. I get to go see SMU next week when they play Florida State. I hopefully 1-3 Florida State team. I have several people coming into town. John Machota and I are going to go to that game together. It's going to be Amanda's first Florida State game.
I cannot wait until ACC people go to Gerald Ford Stadium. I can't wait. I just can't wait to hear the reports. I'm just excited to hear about it.
What is your opinion of Gerald Ford Stadium?
Well, so I've heard they've made a lot of improvements.
Famous SMU graduate, Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford.
I know that he's not.
my experience is that they're just not prepared for big-time football.
Yeah.
They're not prepared for a big-time stadium atmosphere. They run out of drinks. They have issues with, facilities. Supposedly that's been repaired over the offseason, Paul, and it's supposed to be better. But I understand why. There's a lot of articles floating around right now about people that are mad that TCU is ending the series, and I would just like them to go to Gerald Ford Stadium and understand that TCU's been playing a game there on the road every other year for the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
And think about that program and just, I think they'll understand a little bit better.
No, there's not visceral hate coming through that comment at all. That was just a normal,
normal reaction.
Gerald Ford, America's most there president.
He was a president. It's a fact.
Gerald Ford is America's also never elected to either office president. Mm-hmm. He was not elected to be vice president, and he was not elected to be president. He rose to that spot through the ineptitude of corruption in the Nixon administration. Mm-hmm. So, like, when you think when Gerald Ford got the call after Spiro Agnew resigned, and he was like, "Hey," Nixon's like, "Listen, Gerald, would love for you to come be the vice president of the United States," and he's like, and he would be like, "Why did the last guy quit? Don't worry about it. Everything's cool here.
We're doing great."
Yeah, you talk to Ehrlichman and Dean, they'll be fine. Nothing's going on here. Nothing weird. Come on, you don't want to be the vice president. Everyone wants to be the vice president. Come on, you want to be the vice president. Let's do it. How was my Nixon, by the way?
That was pretty good.
Pretty good. I'm pretty good at presidential impressions. I'm pretty good at the presidents. I veer off the path when it goes into people you might actually remember.
Okay.
Like, there's a whole generation. Like, I could be doing that Nixon, and they'll be like, "Who's that? Is that like a new character?"
Yeah.
So, anyway, and he was like, because I can tell you right now, if he called me up and was like, "Hey, would you like to be vice president?" I'd be like, "Nah,
it's okay.
I feel like this is going to end well." Or he was just like, "Oh no, he's totally going to get caught in this Watergate stuff, and then I'll be president.
Yeah,
and I'll be in
true.
charge." But
hey,
who knows?
It worked out.
Yeah. So,
you want to talk Tennessee, Oklahoma before we go to break?
Yes,
here?
I do. I want to talk Tennessee, Oklahoma. So, what do you think about Tennessee? Can Oklahoma hang?
I think they can hang. This feels, I mean, I know OU has not been impressive so far, but I think there's enough talent on this roster, and I feel like the offense gets going a little bit. Ultimately, I believe Tennessee wins, but I don't know, Paul. I've seen some chatter at like people are undervaluing Tennessee to a certain extent, and they're kind of a sleeper in the SEC. But I think this is a competitive football game in Norman for sure.
Yeah. I think it's going to be competitive. I think that there's going to be a lot of like Josh Heupel emotion going on here.
Yeah.
It's got to be so weird. Especially Josh Heupel probably feels like this should be a job that he has. Like, or there's probably part of him that thinks that, or he would love to have that job. Although, being the head coach of Tennessee when they're good is a pretty damn good job.
Man.
I mean, they're one of the craziest, most passionate fan bases in the country. The stadium's always full. It's a great place to play. But you were the last quarterback to win a national title there.
Mm-hmm.
You are beloved by many.
Yes.
But also, do you want to be Scott Frost?
That's true. It's a hard pressure to understand and bear.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's I wonder. But I mean, again, he was coached. He coached there, all that. I do wonder. When we come back, the Wednesday Wheel on Thursday.
That's right.
Which is
top villains. We're going to rank villains in college football.
Okay, where's the wheel? We have great news. I repaired the wheel.
It's been fixed.
I repaired the wheel. They send you a little baggie of replacement parts, which I should have just ordered from the beginning. But when I looked up my previous purchases, and I went to the website, I was like, replacement parts. It came up all too fast. So I'm kind of thinking I might have gotten a lemon for a wheel.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. But it's the wheel we have. And I paid $86 for it.
And it's fixed now.
It's fixed. And then I paid $9 for this. So $95 total dollars that we've put into this wheel, not to mention what the marker budget's going to be down the line. We're going to use this damn wheel. That's for sure. So, Steven, go get the wheel while we're in the break. This is 365 Sports.
is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back. Paul Catalina, Steven Simcox. The Wednesday Wheel of Whimsy on Thursday. So all you people who were wondering where it was yesterday, well, here it is on Thursday.
Here it is.
Okay. So these are villains.
Villains in college football history.
Yes, absolutely. So, Steven, you're close to the wheel. I will let you spin it.
Okay.
We're going to give them a ranking between 1 and 10, right?
1 and 12.
1 and 12.
Connor Stallions.
Connor Stallions, I'm going to rank at 12.
Okay.
I'm going to give him a lower rung villain status. He's going to be, let's compare him to, this is a real DC villain, the Condiment King. It's an actual DC villain.
Have you heard of this, Garrett?
I have not.
I have not either.
Okay. I will,
the Condiment King.
the Condiment King.
Does he terrorize McDonald's?
He is, okay. The Condiment King was created for Batman, the animated series. And he literally like sprays ketchup and mustard and relish at people. He's, let's see, throwback to the 1966 Adam West series. It was whimsical. Let's see. So, yeah. So he was a stand-up comedian, Buddy Standler, brainwashed by the Joker. But the Condiment King, and he would say things like, let's see if you can cut the mustard.
Okay.
So, Connor Stallions.
Did you see this clip today where Joel Klatt just casually lobbed an accusation that TCU stole Michigan signs?
Yeah, or they got help.
They got help, yeah.
Well, their help was somebody told them
that Michigan was stealing signs.
And so they changed their signs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, it's not anything like, hey, we think they're stealing signs. Yeah. Oh, thanks for that tip. Good tip. It wasn't, here are Michigan signs. Yeah.
All right, Connor Stallions, number 12.
Connor Stallions, number 12. He's Condiment King.
Barry Switzer.
Barry Switzer, I'm gonna give him, because I'm looking at the rest of this list. You know what? He had the felony dorm and the misdemeanor dorm. They had that team. We've had him on the show so much. I might be a little too biased. Garrett, I like Barry Switzer a lot.
Barry Switzer's cool.
He's
a good
cool.
interview.
He's a cool guy. And he's also one that like tells you like, make sure you call me before 5:30. If you call any minute after 5:30, this is not going to go how you want it.
Or it might go exactly how you want it.
Yeah. But I did the first time I met him face to face, I was at a Cowboys game and I was riding up the media elevator and he got on. He was going up to talk to Jerry because I guess they're cool again now. Mm-hmm. But like he was going up there. He was there for whatever reason. And I said, oh, hey, Coach Switzer, it was just me and him and a couple of people. I said, I'm Paul Catalina. You've been on our show a bunch of times. I'm friends with Smokey. And he's like, oh. And he like grabbed me and like hugged me. And then I got drunk. Like it was
just a contact high?
It was just bourbon, So I'm going to give him 11. I'm going to give him the 11. He's like, he did some villainous things, but he's maybe reformed. We'll call him an anti-hero. I'm going to say he's like, we're going to give him like Harley Quinn status where bad, but then Suicide Squad. And then like, so there we go. Like, did some bad things, but ultimately, used his powers for good.
Some of these people are just on the list because they win.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Barry's kind of that way. Now, Barry's a big personality. Yeah. I also come from a household that is not very high on Barry Switzer.
Yeah.
Because my mom thinks that he was a horrible coach for the Cowboys.
Well, he did win
he won a Super Bowl.
But he was the beginning of the end.
Yes,
yeah, he was the beginning of the end.
All right. So we got Connor Stallions at 12, Barry Switzer at 11.
Okay.
Jimmy Johnson / the U.
Okay, we're going to give him number 5.
Okay.
And look, I'll even say, as a person who loved Jimmy Johnson as the Cowboys coach, he was a villain as an NFL coach too. I mean, he, calling out people for having a bounty, and him and Buddy Ryan early on in his career, the brashness with which he approached things. So I'm going to give him number 5. He's got let's give him should I keep with one comic book here, or can I vary around?
You can vary around.
So I can go from Marvel to DC.
Sure.
Let's give him Loki status. A good villain, intriguing, never really know where he's moving. Yeah, I'll give him Loki status.
How old were you when they were thriving? You weren't, you were still a kid. You were high school.
I was in junior high and high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you have a lot of hate for them, or were you Florida State?
Oh no, the U?
Yeah, the U.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Cowboys. Junior.
Oh yeah.
No. Back then, I was 9.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't feel any kind of way about them.
Okay.
I liked watching them play.
Sure, fun team. I imagine.
I remember hearing my dad going, "Oh man, those guys are rough." They. Actually, I think we kind of liked them because I remember watching that Cotton Bowl game where they absolutely shredded Texas. Mm-hmm. So I was like, "Oh, well, that was fun."
That's cool.
Yeah. My dad just laughing the whole time. So.
All right, number 5, Jimmy Johnson / the year. The NCAA.
Number 1.
Okay.
Thanos level villain. Although much like Thanos at the end, eventually your overpowering nature gets you in trouble. Mm-hmm. So at the first battles against Thanos were long, and they had to fight him, and they had to make sure that he had him at every turn. The NCAA used to be that way. But then eventually everybody assembles and they find a way through.
That's right.
And now Thanos is nothing.
Now all the portals are open.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I would say number 1, the NCAA.
We got our king, the NCAA. Deion Sanders.
Coach Prime. I'll give him the 10th spot. He's a burgeoning villain. I don't know if Deion knows who he wants to be as a head coach yet. So he doesn't really know who he wants to be as a villain yet.
That's fair.
So let's call him the Tinkerer from Spider-Man, who wasn't necessarily the worst guy, but didn't know what he wanted to be. But
I think he's fun for college football.
I think he's fun. I don't he's not a villain necessarily to me, but in the villain, I get where he's kind of disrupted this, and he also hasn't been able to back it up with actually being a contender.
Yeah, I think he punches down too much. The stuff with
Sean Keeler is ridiculous.
Yeah, and the stuff with the kids after that article came out. There's just times where it's all right, we don't need you to weigh in on this.
Yeah,
you're going about it your way. We get it, but just leave people alone.
Yeah, no, I do think that, and also famous people, and he is a very famous person.
Yes,
coaches are famous people, but not every one of them thinks that you need to know my opinion on everything. Mm-hmm. But Deion was a celebrity first before he was a coach, as opposed to you became a celebrity because you were a coach. He was a celebrity first. And so there's a thing with celebrities where they think that you should hear their opinion on everything, even though,
yeah,
most of it doesn't affect you. But I think that's a little bit of what makes him a villain. Is well, I'm going to talk about this. I have an opinion. I'm going to share it. And not that I don't want people to share their opinions, but I don't need to know your opinion on every single thing.
You can sit some stuff out.
Yeah.
Texas.
I'm looking at the rest of the board. Where I'm ranking. Texas is number 3. Texas has blown up 2 conferences. One for sure destroyed it completely in the Southwest Conference.
Yeah.
Now that was all this, but Texas is, again, they should embrace it. The problem,
they should, yeah.
Here's the thing. They're like Lex Luthor in that they're a villain who does villainous things, but then tries to push it off that they're doing it for the for everybody's
the greater good,
for the greater good. That's what Lex Luthor did. So, I think, like, while they do a lot of great things in the athletic department, I really do love what Chris Del Conte's doing there. Like, it's organized, it's better. He hears the fans and really takes it in. I admire that about him. And I really did. Like, we interviewed Steve Sarkisian, and all got up and we're like, crap, we like him. I like Steve Sarkisian. I like Arch Manning. I like a lot of things. I like a lot of things about Texas individually. I like Matthew McConaughey. But you put them all in that same spot and put that burnt orange on them, then they all become part of this villain collective. And that's the thing that always bothered me about Texas is like, oh, no. The Longhorn Network will benefit you too. And you're like, no, it won't. This is just about you. No. Lex Luthor, like, no. I'm only drilling to the core of the earth to find renewable energy, not at all to kill Superman. That's kind of how it is. Like, Texas is, they're number 3. They're number 3. All right, we got to kind of rapid fire some of these.
All right, Johnny Manziel.
Number 9, just maybe kind of a reckless villain, right? Not all, not all there. We'll call him the Riddler.
That's a good comparison.
The Riddler.
Lane Kiffin.
8. More of a smart ass than anything else. Doesn't care what you think about him. We'll call him Maxwell Lord, who's like a diet version of Lex Luthor.
The Boz.
7. He just because he was like lethal on the field and brash and all that. Like we'll give him a 7. Red Hulk.
Red Hulk. Okay.
Yeah. You'll see Red Hulk coming up. Captain America. We haven't done Saban yet.
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer, number 2. The Joker, an agent of chaos. Doesn't care what kind of rapscallions he brings in. Also, part of a podcast that stole the name of this one.
Nick Saban.
Nick Saban, not a villain. Take him off the list.
Okay.
Refuse to call Nick Saban a villain. He's just a master of excellence that people come out. He's Professor Charles Xavier. That's who he is.
The only person we haven't named is Steve Spurrier.
All right. So
we got 4 and 6 available.
4 and 6 available. We'll give him number 6 because he was like the guy who would cry about the refs so much that eventually they would kind of do things his way. But I miss him. I miss him in the rivalry. I miss. Here's the thing. He was a villain. He was the villain in the Bobby Bowden Steve Spurrier rivalry. Bobby's not a villain at all. Like, there's nothing you can paint about him. Villain. He's an all shucks character. But Steve Spurrier is like, Bobby's the white hat, Spurrier's the black hat. There's no doubt about that. And sometimes the black hat wins and the white hat has to come back. But the relationship was always actually really good interpersonally between the two of them, and they had fun with it. So I will say this. I love Steve Spurrier. It's not something that many people from my walk of life would say, but I love Steve Spurrier. And I miss Steve Spurrier, and I miss Dennis Erickson, and I miss Butch Davis, and I miss those times in the rivalries where it was like legit the biggest game in America when those teams played each other.
This was fun, Paul.
It was fun. We can do heroes next week if you want to.
Okay.
And I
thought about putting Tim Tebow on this list, but it felt like it was just for you.
Here's the thing,
number 4.
I will say Tim Tebow, not a villain. Not a villain. Just a hero that I have no time for. Like Captain Marvel. Just don't care. Don't care. I don't care.
I get it.
Yeah, Like, I get it. Like, I'm going to have to watch this Marvel movie because it's in the sequence and something's going to lead into something else. But I'm just doing this to get it over with. That's what I'm doing. I get it. Everybody likes you. Brie Larson, you're a great actress. Tim Tebow, you were excellent. But not a villain. And, I took Nick Saban off the list. I know people think he's a villain. I think he's Professor X. I think he's a genius. So, Not going to paint him as a villain. That's going to do it for us. Coming up on the show today, we're chock full of guests. We've got Sam Conn at 3:30. Matt McChesney, former Colorado defensive lineman, at 4. He's hilarious. Adam Rittenberg of ESPN at 4:30. David Teal of the Times-Dispatch talking ACC at 5. And Mickey Spagnola at 5:30 trying to explain away 44-19. We'll see if that works. This is the Triple Option. That is Steven Simcox. We love you. Bye.